Learning notes is critical for any music student that wants to progress well and wants to achieve some great things with their instrument, no matter what instrument they have. So in this video, we will be covering some great tips for learning to read your notes quickly on the staff with some phrases, some acronyms, and some landmark notes that will help to stick with you for the long term. So looking at all these notes on the staff, it can look pretty daunting. How am I going to memorize all of this? But like everything, in order to learn it well, you just need to break it down into some smaller chunks and learn just a little bit at a time. In fact, that's the same way that we learn our music. So let's break that down into some categories. The first of those would be our treble clef line notes. So if you are playing piano, this would be your right hand. Majority of the time it's going to be in the right hand. And let's look at the notes on the staff. First, some landmark notes. You'll notice C down here. This is your middle C. It's on a ledger line down here because it comes outside of our main lines. So it's going to be on a ledger line so we know what that note is in space here. So that's one of our landmark notes. When you start with piano, you'll learn this very well because the majority of our songs will start on C. The next landmark note would be our treble G. Okay, so you'll notice, if I bring that G out of the way, this treble clef is just a big giant G. You'll see that it wraps around the G line. In fact, if you look inside here, it even looks like an X or a cross showing you that that is the G line. So that's an easy one to find. All right, so we have C and then G, that would be another one. Then if you look right in the middle here, our middle line for the treble clef is B. There's an old phrase that I remember hearing when I was a little boy that would say, that person made a beeline for that food. That means they went right down the middle. So if you look, that B is right in the middle. It's on the middle line, right in the middle. Next, let's look at an acronym. So one great acronym that I've heard many, many times is every good boy deserves fudge. So we have our E, G, B, D, and F. I've heard it many different ways. In fact, one of my students said that one of the ways he learned it was every good burger deserves fries. I thought that was funny too. So whichever way works for you, use that. Now we go on to our space notes. Our space notes are F, A, C, and E. You'll notice that we're always starting from the bottom and coming up. F, A, C, E. Well, that's an easy one because those spaces spell face. So this is a good way to remember that. Space spells face for our treble clef. F, A, C, and E. So if you just remembered that last phrase from before of every good boy deserves fudge and face, you just learned your treble clef notes on the staff. Let's go on. Let's go on to the bass clef now. So that's going to be the bottom part of the staff here. And the bass clef, we do have some landmark notes there as well. The first one is the bass clef is just an F. You'll notice that it has two dots on both sides of that line. That is the F line. You'll also notice that this bass clef F starts on this as well. So you'll see where they drew this, they started on the F line and then swirled around and made that loop. Okay, so two dots on both sides of the line and it starts on that line. It's a telltale sign that that is F. So that's a great way to remember that as a landmark. That is F. Next, if you look at the top line, A is the beginning of our musical alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, which also means all the way down here, our bottom line is G, and that's the last letter of our musical alphabet. That's some great ways to remember that. Those are landmarks. Just like if you used a landmark to find a location, like a big water tower or a big tree. It's a landmark saying, hey, I know where that location is. So now we can locate our notes very easily. Here's another one. Right in the middle here is D. And a little funny phrase to go along with this would be, hey, diddle diddle, D's in the middle. This is an easy way of finding D. That is our middle note. Now let's look at those line notes. Those line notes, if you use the phrase of grizzly bears don't fly airplanes, that's something that'll stick in your brain. You might even think about that, a grizzly bear trying to get into an airplane. So looking at the bottom line, G, which was already one of our landmark notes, because that's the ending of our musical alphabet. Grizzly bears don't. That's another one of those landmark notes. D, hey diddle diddle, D's in the middle. Fly airplanes. Airplanes is another one of those landmark notes because it is the beginning of our musical alphabet. And then we have our other landmark note, which is the bass clef, showing us where F is. So very easy to be able to remember this using these phrases. Now let's look at our space notes. We have A, C, E, and G, starting from the bottom going to the top. A good phrase to remember this is, all cows eat grass. That's something we'll remember, right? You might even remember that picture next time you look at your space notes for your bass clef. All cows eat grass. It's a nice acronym to remember our notes for our bass clef space notes. And there you have it. So I will be including a printable PDF below for you to be able to print out that you can use as a reference and that you can use for learning these notes. Spend a little time on it each day, go through it, quiz yourself, cover the notes up and see if you can remember what they are. And I know you'll be successful with just a little bit of review and practice. Happy learning!